So gentlemen, congratulations for your documentary, All Man, the International Male Story.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's we're so enthusiastic about all the sort of reception that we've received so far. So it feels really special after a long journey.
Well, more of a congratulations. It's being showcased at Tribeca this year. How do you guys feel about that?
Couldn't be better.
Thrilled.
Really, because it's in person. It's in person. It's in New York City. And at the end of the film, one of the co-founders, I call her that, Gloria Tomita, says, you know, it was always a thrill. We'd be walking in New York City and I'd see someone wearing our clothes. And I'm thinking, my God, she's coming to New York to the premiere. She's going to hear that sitting in New York City. And so is the audience. It just couldn't be more perfect.
Yeah, and for a company that was always sort of struggling, not struggling, that's too hard a word, aspired to be taken very seriously as fashion. It's sort of the epicenter of fashion in the US. And so it's nice it's getting a showing there.
Yeah, and it feels good after 6 years, you know, of like the journey of like, it's like a validation for all of the work that everybody's done and all the time everybody's put into everything, you know?
Right. So what sparked this documentary? How did you guys stumble upon International Male?
It was a real accident, to be completely honest. A friend of mine at work was moving on to a new position, and he had 2 International Male catalogs on the recycling bin of his office. And I picked it up and I held it close to my heart and I said, oh my God, where did you get these? I remember being young and queer, or questioning queer. And I remember they had such a profound impact, showing me a world outside the suburban world where I was living. And I brought them to Bryan and I said, you know what, we should make a documentary short about why this was so important to a generation of gay men. And we thought, oh, this will be a fun little idea. And as we unpacked the story, it became about so much more in our culture and a great lens through which to talk about masculinity, self-expression, etc. in American culture for men.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I had no idea it was a catalog. For this entire time, like when I grew up, I thought it was just a magazine for fashion attuned to men or something like that.
Yeah, well, and that was like a real strategy of the catalog. Was that's one of the geniuses of Gene, is that he really wanted it to look like a magazine, and even people that work there interchange the word magazine and catalog all the time in like an interview, let's say. And they say, oh, the models will say, oh, the magazine. And that strategy of sort of putting people in a place and telling them a story was one of the things that was so brilliant about it, because it made it safe, or made it fantasy, or made it all these different things at once.
So where did you folks want to start with this documentary? I mean, I'm not even sure if you could pick up an International Male anywhere, not even in the library. I don't think so.
You can sure see it online, looking it up, International Male, and all the images that pop up. And now you see it for the movie. It's fantastic. But yeah, so people, I think through the years, it's just something. I went to the store, International Male. I didn't know it was a catalog. It was it was the store near Studio One in West Hollywood, California. So yeah, I shopped there, and the guys heard this 1,000 times, but I bought a black fishnet tank top and a leopard skin leotard that I wore out. But that was my International Male outfit back in the mid-70s, late 70s. And yeah, and then when these guys came to me they'd already done like 24 interviews with people, and all really interesting people who work for International Male or were the models. And I'd say, well, gosh, what about the founder, Gene Burkhardt? And he'd been so quiet for 35 years. You know, he sold it in 1986, and now we're in 2016. And I mean, and he finally came around and said, I'll do it. And Gloria Tomita, his partner, who he hired as a secretary, she's 95 years old now. So it was great that we were able to get the origin story from the real people, because it wouldn't have worked without Gene and Gloria. And the employees and the models refer to them throughout the film as Gene and Gloria, or as their mother and father figure. And it keeps it so personal. And that's what was so fascinating to me, was this little nuclear family that made a catalog and made it up as they went along.
So, you know, it's been years, but how, Jesse, Bryan, how did you folks found your interview subjects in terms of the models and the employees? I mean, you know, they probably dispersed long ago all over the globe, and tracking them down must have been quite a quest.
It was actually easier than you'd think. You know, Jesse had made some cursory connections with Dennis Morey. And Dennis has been an enormous supporter and champion of the film from the beginning, you know, really trying to encourage Gene and connecting us up with Maureen and various people. And then Maureen knew the models, you know, so it was one that kind of led to the other. I think, you know, it kept expanding over time once we started doing the interviews. And part of that was, you know, there was a group that was really excited to speak, and there was a group that was reticent to speak. And the reason why some were reticent to speak was because of the issues that the catalog had always kind of faced, being sort of written off as a gay catalog and this gay thing. And for so many, for all of them, this experience they had, and I'll tell you this, whether they were a model, whether they were an employee, whatever it was the best job, the best client, the best thing, and it holds an enormous special place in their heart. And the people who made the catalog take it very personally. It is so important to them, that legacy, that story. And, you know, so it was a process to get them to trust us. And as certain, you know, people started doing the interviews and they got to know and what that experience was like, it just kept snowballing from there. And Jesse has a really great story about how he got Carson Kressley. That was great, because we wanted Carson. We wanted Carson from the get-go. And he had heard he was going to be in LA doing signing for his new book. And Jesse was like, should I go? What should I do? I was like, go, girl, go.
So I'm waiting in line, and this is Beverly Hills isn't my sort of scene so much. I'm like a little like out of my element, and I'm waiting in line, and he's the same character you see on TV, you know. And I finally get up to my turn. I'm holding his book, and I ask him to sign it. And I say, if I say international male to you, what comes to mind? And his eyes just like went aflutter, like he just was like so like he just was not speechless. He was like, oh my God, I'm on a beach and there's a big rock and I'm in this like net tank top and I'm, you know, and maybe I'm smoking, maybe I'm doing, he had such a fantastic vision, memory of it, excuse me. And it took him back to like his childhood. He has a story that's very common with queer identifying people, is that, you know, it came in the mail, sort of a surprise. They took it to their basement. So he was like so excited and on board from the beginning. I mean, I wanted to say one thing about what Bryan was saying about this family, this band of outsiders, as we referred to them when we were conceptualizing the film and working together with Peter and all this stuff, is that they are so, there's even a private Facebook group for ex-employees, and they all participate on it. They all share pictures. They have little mini reunions. Like this ecosystem of talent and personality that they brought together, it's unlike anything that I've experienced personally in my life. And to have this sort of queer American success story, if you will, of like women and LGBT people and other people sort of crafting this catalog together. It really is quite magical. It's not the American success story we think of.
Wow. No, I mean, I'm amazed. I've held many jobs and we don't even have Facebook pages for ex-employees or any of that stuff. We leave work and then we just say sayonara to everybody. We're gone.
Totally.
Yeah, these people really, really, really care about each other and about what they did. And it's not a normal workplace situation. And they all say that, you know, I've never had a job since like it, you know, and yeah, I think what's unique about it too, it was an enormously open environment. You know, like the stories that never made it into the film about the craziness, you know, with employees are like, you know, Maureen was around 1920 when she worked there, and she would go to Black's Beach with the boys, or she would go to the leather bar and do poppers with with Rick Ledford. And like, you know, it was a very open, open world. And it was one of those rare places where everybody could be themselves without worrying. And you could talk about your boyfriends or your night out at the bar or, you know, whatever's going on in life.
And the leader of this, Gene Burkhart, came from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, a large Catholic family, and as conservative as all get out, but he made everybody feel welcome. Unconditional love is what he and Gloria offered. And it's so thrilling that 5 of Gene's nieces and nephews are coming to the premiere on Sunday, and Gloria, both her sons, and then I think 3 grandkids are coming. So that reflects the this is the real family of the people that became the mother and father figure for the international male family. So that's all true.
Well, that's a great testament to this family and to Gene. But like you guys said, it took a while to get Gene on board to be interviewed on this. What was he like really that you guys didn't portray him on screen?
Well,
what was he like that? What? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
What wasn't portrayed on screen? Like when the cameras are off.
Well, I mean, I think I just want to say just at the beginning, when I went to first meet Gene, like he invited me down to San Diego, and I was like, whoa, he's inviting me down and he's putting me up, and like he's very cordial. And you know, I'm of course saying like, oh, I want to make a little short gay film about what this meant to gay people. And it was sort of, I didn't know the whole story, obviously, yet. And once I knew more of the story, of course, I didn't feel that way. But I think for the catalog, and I mentioned this in the beginning, they always wanted to be taken seriously. They wanted to be seen as more than just a gay catalog, excuse me. And throughout the whole tenure of the catalog, they always sort of butt up against this, you know. And it's funny, like, we butt up against this as filmmakers too, of like, you know, this is a story about a lot more than just LGBTQ stuff. And we really wanted the film to be seen that way too. And so I think that Gene obviously was very protective of his
story, really. It was his story. And I think, you know, what had happened over the years is he had always planned on doing something himself. It just never happened. And we got this from Dennis multiple times, always trying to do it with this. You know, I think Gene was enormously protective of his story, as a lot of people are. Mm-hmm. And I think over time, over the years that we were making the film, you know, eventually he ended up getting ill. And I think that illness was an element, like he came out the other side of the illness, and that was fine. And we started to make inroads again. But really, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, you know, we had changed our perspective and opened up the film way by that point enormously. But what changed really is, you know, Peter was really instrumental in getting Gene and Gloria. And the reason why is Peter has an amazing ability to really connect. And I think, you know, Peter's work that he brought, his experience that he brought in the projects he had made previously, that really resonated with Gene. And that was a big deal. I think if you're asking like, what was Gene like that wasn't portrayed in the film, I'm going to tell you right now, that's Gene in the movie. It really is him. There's nothing on that screen that isn't him. That's not an act. You know, he was a natural performer, and Peter has a great story he can tell you about this. But Gene literally is that person on the screen at all times. When we went to his house to hang around, he took us on a tour of his house and just showed us, look at this ad from this era, look at from this. He was still coming up with ideas. I mean, the guy more than anything else, he wasn't a businessman, he was an inventor. He invented all kinds of athleisure wear and sportswear before that was really a thing in the 70s. You know, a lot of this couldn't make it in the film, but to this point, Peter, you know, because he was a performer, the guy was just amazing.
Okay, so when I went down to San Diego to meet Gloria and Gene with the mission of, we've got to get these people to cooperate because this is how we're going to get a feature film. And I didn't realize that when Jesse was talking about, oh, we're going to make a film and the gay component and all that, and that was in Gene's head, because as Bryan was saying, he really looked at it as a catalog that was for all men. Part of the title, All Man, is for that reason. But I had done so many different kinds of documentaries, and he'd seen one I did on Johnny Carson, so he knew I did documentaries that were, you know, covered all different kinds of things. And I could tell I was just beginning to earn his trust, and Gloria and Gene were sitting on the couch talking about it and reminiscing. And I know, okay, when they're doing that, that's a good sign. And then Gloria said, you know, when I look back on it, it's all a fairy tale. And Gene immediately said, fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. And honest to God, I knew that was the song I used for the credits. And Gene broke into song at the drop of a hat. We both bonded over that because I know lyrics to songs like he did. And my first lunch, we were singing songs, and he recorded himself. He would pay to have a band, half of an orchestra, and record himself in these professional studios because he thought of himself as a performer and an inventor.
And a songwriter. He wrote his own songs.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got the tapes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that the real beauty for me in my relationship with Gene was that I think that it was a documentary. It's my first documentary, but it's such a revealing process. It's a revealing process for everyone. And there was this moment like towards the end of Gene's life, and I was at lunch with him and Gloria, and he just turns to me, and this is, you know, long after the interview and Peter and all of that. And he just says, you know, it really is about all these things too, all these, you know, it's so precious to him. And it's like, I felt like we were finally friends in a sort of more deep way. And it was something I really treasure. And I always think, God, I wish I had that on camera. God, I wish I had these things, these moments that I only heard, and like the other people were in the bathroom and like he's telling me this stuff. And, you know, I think when people are at that age in life, you know, you become really aware that their time is running short quickly. And so the things, the sentiments and the statements they make, I don't know, for me, become really precious, and I really like hold on to them.
You know what Gloria said? Because when Gloria said she was going to actually come to the premiere in New York City, this 95-year-old woman, she said at first no, but then she said, you know what? If I do this, this is going to be the cherry on the top of the ice cream sundae that's been my whole life since I met you.
Yeah.
Am I? Yeah. You know, I wish I had that. I mean, too.
Gene, you know, not to like keep on the Gene train in a way, but you know, he really did affect and change a lot of people's lives. You know, in a way that Gloria. I mean, you know, Gloria was in her 40s or so by the time she met Gene. You know what I mean? Like she had this whole, and with no work experience ever. You know, and becomes the head buyer and becomes this, and you know, and not only that, but all of the way in which the models, for instance, you know, even though they didn't really interact with Gene, per se, but the way that the catalog changed their lives by giving most of them, made their careers a career rather than just, I'm on a Versace billboard for a month. It made it, they were the highest paying job in the entire industry for men, and people bought houses, people were able to support themselves, and also it really opened up a lot of the people who were straight into changing the viewpoints that they had about gay people and queer people in general, because of working with all these people, that they had grown up where this was not a good thing, and they were so accepting and so inclusive and so fun, and it really changed their lives and growth as a human being.
Yeah, it was such a journey for all those people. I mean, there's a great story that didn't make it in the film about a model going to, like, he was at a gay club, like he and his friends ended up going to this like gay bar, and of course he's being ogled, and he goes in the bathroom and he's peeing, and he's like looking at a torn out page of the catalog with him on it, and he's just like, it was such an evolution for everyone, and that was what was so endearing about this group of outsiders, and coming together to make this thing. It's yeah.
So in the end, does Gene realize how much influence he had, not only with the company, but also outside? Because, like clothing companies like Abercrombie and Fitch, American Eagle, or Express, he paved way for those type of clothing, and he paved way for like Queer Eye for the straight guy. They're metrosexual movement of the 2000s. I mean, this could all be traced back to International Male somehow.
Now they wouldn't
say
he
knew
that.
It.
Yeah, he did. I say Gloria said, "Look,
Yeah.
we were just trying to get the July catalog done. We're just trying to sell clothes here." And when we ask these questions about the legacy, there's such a humility about everybody, which is what makes it so great. Everybody's just a real person. No one's thinking about, well, God, did we have an impact on the world, or were we making history? No, they were just putting out this catalog. I think Gene, I could tell he has a big enough ego that he did love all the attention we were heaping on him. And when we were telling him things, Bryan and Jesse would be telling him things he didn't even know because they had been talking to all the other employees. He was really thrilled about it. And he would call, because it took a while before, he died and we were still working on the film, but he was always calling to, please give me an update on what's going on and why haven't I heard from you? So, it's dedicated to him. So I'm sure he's watching somewhere.
But I think to point it to your question, I would say this. I think Gene was aware of a lot of things. But Gene's modesty would not go out of his way saying, all these people owe it to us or anything like that. He wouldn't even look at it that way. But he knows that they were the first. He knows that they were groundbreaking in what they did. He knew these things, but he's a very modest Midwestern person. It's different. Gloria even knows, like, she can look. There are other people. I think everybody who worked in this place knows this, but there was never any animosity or any issue. I think more what it was, Gene was always just trying to figure out, like, is there some, get the gang back together again, or let's do something, or maybe we should do something again. I think, selling the company was extremely difficult for him. It was painful. And he never really talked about why he sold the company to anybody. I think there might have been maybe one person who knew, Gloria, if that, but there were rumors that it had something to do with AIDS, but he had never said anything. And when, it was high on our list to talk about this when we were doing the interviews, and Peter was conducting Gene's interview, and he gets to this question, and Gene just said, you asked him, why did you sell? And he just blurts out, AIDS. And, he was watching all of his friends, his family members who were part of this original crew getting sick. And he was really worried, you know, he talks about it in the film, but he opened up for the very first time and spoke to it. You know, he channeled a lot of money into AIDS charities and projects in San Diego. And, you know, but it just was really hard because he cared and loved all of these people so much. And, you know, seeing that happen, and he didn't know what was going to happen, and he sold. And I think in some ways, you know, I think it's one of those things to where, you know, it was also, he just also knew it was the right time. If you're going to sell, this is a good time. It was all kind of confluence, but it's bittersweet and it's painful. And I think, you know, that was something that always was with him in some way because of what it's connected to, what it is. And of course it's this baby of his, you know, the company itself, all this stuff, but yeah.
Wow. Now, for all three of you, because this was originally supposed to be a short film, and obviously, in the end, it's not a short film. Was this more satisfying to make a full-length documentary in the end for All Man, the international story? Because you guys got a lot of different perspectives in it, or was this a enduring type of process?
No, it was without question. When I met Bryan and Jesse and I looked at the transcripts of the interviews that they had done, I said, these are real people that are just talking without even being aware there's a camera on them. And I know people watching love watching people just being real. And all we needed, though, is Gene and Gloria. And once we got them, I knew it would be a feature because it has to be about Gene and Gloria, and each one of them has their origin story of trauma, which carries through. Everyone in that film has a backstory, I think, of rejection in some way, but coming together to be in this world of unconditional love and support, especially today, I think is a big message, and why I think this film is going to resonate for all kinds of audiences.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, you know, look, everybody in it in some way or another, I mean, even the models are all an other, so to speak,
Yeah.
you know, but, you know, the point of it being a short, the thing was like, Jesse and I, yeah, it was a short because we had been making another film and our focus was on that. And we wanted something fun to do in the meantime while we were making this big film about growing up in the age of AIDS. It was very dark and very heavy. We wanted something light, something easy, something we could do. And like I said, we started that way, but within the first 3 months, like I just remember we started poking around and asking, and it just kept growing, like the stories that were coming up and everything coming out. It was never going to be a short. It just couldn't have been. The hard part for all of us, though, was always about, and this was why Gene and Gloria were critical to making it happen, was all these elements were there. But a lot of this sort of connective tissue, especially the early years, understanding why it started, the origins, the impetus for it, the soul of it, that thing, you know, we had to have them, you know, otherwise it would have been an enormously different film. I don't even know what it would have been, but that was that. So yeah, from an early stage, we knew it just was a matter of also for Jesse and I, you know, finding the right partner to bring in who could bring that element into the film. And, you know, Peter has enormous, extensive experience, you know, and it was that was like, okay, this is what the film needs in order to push through, to push over, to go through that edge, and to do that with someone who's been there, done this, and knows this and can connect with these people. And that's what happened. You know, the film would have never happened without Peter's contribution and work and partnership with this.
Yeah, I mean, I have to echo basically everything that's been said so far and just say, I mean, it's the great privilege of making a documentary. You make what you learn in the process, and the film could never have been as short. I mean, I feel like it could have been chapters because there's so many stories, you know, that don't make it in. And, you know, I think that there are things that deserve closer looks too, like race and body type. And there's a lot of different things, and I'm really happy with the film in that we acknowledge all these things, we bring them up, and it's off to the next person to investigate deeper of that, you know. I think for me,
one film can't cover all of these things.
Yeah.
You know, that's the hard part about it. There's a lot to talk about and unpack when it comes to men.
And I was taught, keep it short, 84 minutes. It's the perfect length. You want them always wanting more. Never like, oh God, that could have been 10 minutes could have been cut. So it just it feels so right. And yes, it could be longer, but you know what? That's for others.
That's another, that's the other chapters. And I mean, that's, so I think that it's been a great privilege to see this film realize this little thing that was often written off as tawdry and erotic and rightfully so. And all those things are really wonderful qualities it had too. And I want to be clear. But really, fashion, self-expression, it's about so much more. And that's what was so wonderful about connecting this thing, which sort of struggled for legitimacy, to really a changing culture. And the culture we live in now, to go back to an earlier thing that we were talking about, is crafted in part because of this. They didn't have the language. So, you know, we come and we're talking to Jean about, you know, like the body types and this and that. They didn't see it that way. They're like, did that model sell a lot of clothes? Like, it was so basic. It was so, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it was just, our world has changed so much. And the way, you know, why it was so sacred as a young queer person was representation. Here I am seeing all these images of the men I'm going to become who are, you know, dying basically and having painful relationships with family, friends, coworkers. And here's this fantasy world where it was something so different and it was something so special. And I think that we need that inspiration. And I always say the best part about social media is that everyone can represent themselves. We see trans bodies, we see queer bodies, we see straight bodies, we see all these bodies. And there's a whole host of problems that come along with that too. But I think opening us up and moving us forward as a culture is what this did through it, the way it got interpolated into our society.
Yes, this is a special documentary for sure. But one last thing before I let you guys go, because I took a lot of you guys' time already, but as audiences at Tribeca, and hopefully more in the future, get a chance to watch your documentary, what is the one most important take that you hope that they walk away with after viewing your film?
Unconditional love, watching people. We have labels. We talk about spectrum. We talk about, I want to be called this. I want this pronoun or that pronoun. Here we're watching people they're kind to one another. They love one another. They're representing humanity. It's not, I've got to be called this, I've got to be called that. You're just watching people respect one another and care for one another and deeply love one another without demanding some kind of a label or to be called something or to be part of some group. Unconditional love.
That's nice. For me, it's about things that are often written off as trivial or camp or not that important. Often there's a much deeper thing right under the surface. It's why it resonates with so many people, because it had an impact. And I hope one thing, and sort of a little off topic, but that people approach things in life with that same sort of questioning or inquiry of like, simply writing something off or labeling something isn't always, there's often a lot more there just below the surface.
Great. Bryan, last words?
Last words. Oh my gosh, so much has been said. I agree with a lot. I think ultimately for me, you know, this film really is, I want men in general to think about, you know, their sexuality, their sense of self-expression, and what masculinity is. To me, a lot of it's like, when we say, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be masculine? What's appropriate for expressions of sexuality, not sexual orientation, but men's sexuality. I think, to me, again, like gay men have largely been able to express themselves, or have pushed to express themselves, historically. And I think it's something I hope that all men, ultimately kind of look at and figure out and can find a more comfortable and positive form of expression and experience for themselves.
Well said. Well said. Well said for all of you gentlemen. You came up with a captivating documentary that a lot of people will not realize on how much influence International Male does. And congratulations once again. And have fun in New York. This is very exciting for you.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.